Hey guys, and welcome back to another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial. In today's video I'm going to be going over how to create something similar to a Slenderman type game, where if you look at the enemy AI, you're going to have static come up on your screen, so you're not going to be able to see anything else other than the static, or if you want you can change the opacity so you can still see through it a little bit, but that's what we're going to make today, and when you look at it, it'll be on, when you look away, it'll be off again. So let me show you what this is going to look like. So if we go into first person, you can see that our enemy is over there. If I look at them, we're going to get the static on screen. If I look away, it's going to come off. You can see it's fading on and off as well. You can see it's just kind of moving up diagonally to the left. You can make it move however you like, make it look completely different. You can even have a video on there if you want instead, so it looks a little bit different, a little bit better. But again, this is the basic static which I've got. I'm going to show you how to put it on screen, take it off, all of that good stuff. And if you want as well, you can also add audio on there. Again, maybe a video would work better for you. And if we look away, it goes off again, like so. And again, you can customize this so it fades on and off quicker, slower. The static looks different, has audio. You can see through it more because this you can't see through it at all. You can see through it more if you want. But again, I'll be showing you how to do all of that. And if you want more specific help, let me know in the comments down below. But without further ado, let me delete this code and I'll show you how I've done it. So the first step we want to take is we want to create our static material. So what I've done is I've just quickly imported a JPEG texture of some static here. So as you can see, that's what I've got. So I just Googled static and found a copyright-free one which I could use. Again, if you want, you can use a video with audio on there as well instead. I do have a tutorial on adding a video with audio to the widget, which you can use that merged in with this to get that working for you. But if you're doing it this way instead, what we're going to do is right click on the texture and create a material. I'm going to name it static team mat, so leave it as it is, and open it up straight away. In here, I'm going to change the material domain from surface to user interface, so we can use it in the widget. The RGB going into final color, and we're also going to change the blend mode from opaque to translucent, and that's just so we can fade it in and out on the widget. And then to give it simple movement, what we're going to do is come out the UVs, and we're going to get a panner with the coordinates being a texture coordinate. And if we select the panner, the speed X I'm going to have as 0.3, speed Y I'm going to have as 0.2, just so it's going off in a kind of diagonal motion. And again, that's just a very simple way that I'm going to be making the static move. Again, you can do many different ways, and you can, like I say, do a video, but this is how I'm doing it. So you can see this is the static which we're going to have. So once you've done that, you can apply and save and close that, as that is that part done, setting up the basic static material. So we can close that. And what we want to do now is set up the widget. So we're going to right click, go to user interface and create a widget blueprint. And I'm going to name this one static widget, opening that up straight away. In here, I'm going to add an image. Position X is 0, position Y is 0, size X is 1920, and size Y by 1080. The image I'm going to have as my static T mat that we just made. So now we have the static on screen moving like so. And I might want to slow that down a bit, but I think for the moment, just to show you, this is good. And I'm going to anchor it to the whole screen as well, so it doesn't move about. Now that means we will have the static on screen, but we want to fade it in and out as well, so it looks better than just snapping on. So easy way to do that is make sure you have the animations and timeline tabs. If you don't have them, you can go to window and then just make sure you tick timeline and animations so they both are ticked like so. Then we're going to hit the plus animation here. I'm going to name this one fade, as we can do fade for both in and out because we can just play or reverse it. Make sure we have the image selected and the fade track selected, so the animation we just made. I'm going to hit the plus track and hit image 34, whatever you've named it, which is just my image for the static I have here. Then we're going to hit the plus track on that image there, and we're going to get color and opacity. We're going to open that up, and at the very start, so where it is now, I'm going to change the A, or the alpha, or the opacity, to be 0. Drag the timeline out to how long I want it to be. So let's say 0.5 seconds. Drag that all the way to the end of that, and set the opacity to be 1. So if we test this out, we're going to hit play, and that's just going to fade in the animation like so. If it goes backwards, it will fade out. So that is our very basic fading in and out animations there. So let's compile and save that. And what I'm going to do is then go over to the graph here, delete event preconstruct and event take, and I'm going to be using event construct. Out of this, I'm going to play animation, the target itself, the in animation as the fade animation we just made there, so you can get it from the top left. We're going to leave everything else as default, including play mode as forward. So then when we create this widget and we put it on the screen, it's going to start fading in. So it will fade in, and when we just put it on the screen, it will fade it in, which is perfect. Underneath this, we're going to right click and add a custom event, naming this one fade out. And as you guessed, this one is to fade it out. So let's select the fade and play animation we've got up here, Control C and Control V to duplicate it. The in animation will stay as the fade, so leave everything the same. Apart from play mode, we want to be reverse instead of forward. Because like we do with animations for opening and closing a door, we only need the one animation, as because it's the exact same going backwards, we can just reverse it. So forward will fade in, reverse will fade out. So we can compile and save, and that is the widget set up. So we have our static here like so, that's what it's going to look like, and we can fade it in and out as well, however we want. So we can close that widget like so, and the final pieces of the code we want to do in the character blueprint. So I'm going to open that up now, and for me that is content, third person BP, blueprints, third person character. We're going to go straight up to the viewport, and what we want to do in here is we want to add in some pawn sensing. And that is just so we can quickly and easily detect if the player is looking at the enemy AI. It's just a nice easy way for us to do it with it already being built into the engine. So let's add a component, and I'm going to add pawn sensing. And we can leave all the settings by default here apart from only sense players. We want to untick that so it's false, so we can also sense AIs as well, which is obviously what we want. Again, make sure you have C pawns ticked, everything else can be left the same, making sure only sense players is false. And then down at the bottom you'll have the events. We're going to hit the plus on C pawn event there. So now whenever the player sees another pawn from the pawn sensing, we're going to fire off this event. Out of the pawn here, we're going to cast to our AI. So I've named mine AI Slender, but you might have it named something completely different, or if you want it to be a general, not one specific AI, you don't need to cast to it at all, you can just come straight out. But the reason why I'm casting to my AI here is because I want to make sure that it's only when the player sees this specific AI that it will do this code. But again, if you don't want it to be this one, choose the one you want, or don't do it at all. After this, we want to hold down S, left click to get a sequence, connecting that into there, and then we want to get a re-triggerable delay with a duration as 0.6 seconds. And the reason I'm doing that is because this here is going to detect when we stop looking at the AI. Because if we select our pawn sensing, you can see the sensing interval is 0.5. So every 0.5 seconds, it's going to check to see if we are looking at a pawn. So if it's been 0.6 seconds, then we know we're no longer looking at something, so we can fire off this code. And because it's re-triggerable, this will keep going into it. So if it's been 0.5 seconds and it's already seen something, it will go back into here. So this will only fire off when we're no longer looking at the AI. Out of then 0, we're going to get an is valid node, the one with the question mark next to it like so. And out of is not valid, we're going to create a widget. I'll explain why in a second. The class we want to be our static widget that we made earlier. I'm going to right click the return value, promoting it to a variable, and I'm going to name this static widget reference. Let me delete that one from earlier as I forgot to do that. And now with that static widget reference, we're going to place that into the input object of the isValid here. Now the reason I'm doing this here is because I only want to create the widget if we haven't already done it. So if we haven't created the widget, it won't be valid, so we'll come out of here and create the widget. If we have already done it, this will be valid, so we'll come out of the isValid and do the rest of the code which we want. So that just makes it a lot more efficient for the game, because if you keep creating loads and loads and loads of widgets, when you already have them, they will eventually start to lag. So after this, what we're going to do is hold down O, left click to get a do once, connect that to the isValid and the set widget there. And out of the completed, we want to come out the static widget ref and add to viewport. So again, we're only creating it once whenever we need it, and we're also only going to be adding it to the viewport once as well, because obviously, like I say, this is going to update every single time we see the AI. So if we keep seeing it, we don't want to keep adding it unless we look away and then need to re-add it. So that's how we're going to do that. And then to go into the reset, to detect when we've stopped looking at it and we want to put it back on screen, we'll come off of the re-triggerable delay here. But first, we'll come out the static widget ref again and fade out. So call the function custom event we named earlier called fade out, which is obviously going to take it off of our screens. And that will go into the reset of the do once there, so we can then put it back onto the screen when we want. I have just remembered one thing, however. We need to reopen our static widget here. So for me, that is in Slender, static widget, and go back in the graph. And one thing we want to do is hold down D, left click to get a delay after the play animation for fade out. The duration is going to be how long our animation is. So if I select it, you can see my animation is 0.5 seconds there. So I'm going to put 0.5 in the duration, and now completed, we want to remove from parent. And we're doing this because this will fade it out, however it will still be on screen. We won't be able to see it, but it will still be there, which again will eventually start to lag out your game. So we just want to make sure we do that. So we can compile and save, and now we can close that. And again, this should be the code done. So what we're going to do is when we see the AI, we're going to create the widget if we need to, and put it on screen if we need to as well. And we stop looking at the AI, it will fade the widget out and take it off the screen as well. So let's compile, save, and hit play to test this out. So you can see this already isn't working, because the second I've spawned in, I've already got the widget on screen. It did fade in, however, but it thinks we've already seen it, and actually that's not broken. I'll tell you why it did that. We didn't mess about the pawn sensing. So right now, the player can see in a 180 degree angle here, or it's probably 90 degree. Essentially, the AI here is in line of sight. Even if we can't actually see it through the camera, the character that we're playing as can. So what we want to do is just modify that a bit. So we go back to the viewport, select the pawn sensing. I'm going to change the peripheral vision from 90 degrees to 45. So it's half of that, so it's looking forwards. Maybe a bit narrower, let's say 30, so you really have to look at it. So I'm going to compile, save, hit play test this again, and now you can see we're looking forwards, so it's coming out around there and around there, so we're not looking at the AI. Going to first person and test this out. We look at the AI, we've got the widget come up on screen, so we've got the static, and if we look away, we no longer have the static anymore. We look at it, we get it, we look away, we no longer get it. What I might do as well is just mess about with it to show you how we can do this differently. Open the static widget, and what I'm going to do is in the animation here, this final value for the alpha and the opacity, I'm not going to have as 1, I'm going to have as 0.6, so we still see through it ever so slightly. So let's see what that looks like. So that looks quite good as well. So we have the static, but we can still see just through it, so it's not completely blocking our vision like so. So I think that looks good as well. So again, it's very easy to customize to get it working perfectly for you. So I think that'll be it for this video. We've done everything we want to do. We've set it up so when we look at an AI, we're going to get static come up on our screen, and when we look away, it will be taken down as well. And again, I've shown you many different ways on how you can very easily customize this to get it perfect for you. And again, this is taken from an idea in the Slenderman games, which I don't know how many of you have actually heard of those, as they're quite old now, but it's a good game from quite a while ago, and this is one of the core mechanics in there. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, make sure to like and subscribe down below. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.